Good afternoon. I'm Joyce Barrett, and welcome to today's webinar. Webinars are brought to you through the generosity of Heritage Ohio supporters. We invite you to join us by visiting the Heritage Ohio website. Heritage Ohio's mission is helping people to save the places that matter, build community, live better. Today's presentation is on Epic Experiences, a new program developed by the Ohio Travel Association. We will be taking questions at the end of the presentation. If you have a question, please type it into the question box at any time. Later this afternoon, you will receive an email from GoToWebinar with a link to the recording of this webinar, which you're welcome to share. We also post our webinars on the Heritage Ohio YouTube channel. You'll see that today's presentation is linked in the handouts. If you look at your panel on the right, there's handouts and you can download the presentation. Our presenter today is Melinda Huntley, who is the Executive Director of the Ohio Travel Association, OTA, a nonprofit organization that provides support for museums, attractions, visitors bureaus, retail shops, hotels, restaurants, and other businesses wanting to attract travelers. OTA advocates for smart policies that increase travel in Ohio, which helps our communities and businesses thrive. Melinda's career experience includes public relations at Cedar Point, running a CVB along Lake Erie, and helping communities develop heritage and outdoor experiences through the OSU Ohio Sea Grant College program. Melinda understands the opportunities for businesses and communities of all sizes. With that, I will hand the controls over to Melinda.
Thank you, Joyce, and welcome everyone, whether you're joining us virtually or watching this recording later. Thanks for joining us, and we're going to jump right in. What are we going to talk about? Well, we are going to talk about some possibilities that happen when we work together. We are going to talk about the group market, what that market looks like, how your businesses can become Epic Group Experiences. We are launching, as Joyce said, a new program focused on really giving credit where credit's due, those businesses who do a great job working with groups, and 3 ways you can get either your business, if you're a business on the call, or your community, businesses in your community designated. And I have a couple of surprises I'm going to throw in here given the time frame. So we will just jump in and get started. I think I cannot talk to an audience like this, which includes many Main Street programs. Also know that we have several CVBs on the call. We also have some attractions. And I can't talk to an audience such as this without talking about the relationship between Main Streets and Convention and Visitors Bureaus and how lucrative that partnership can be and how successful it can be. And so I've thrown up here on the slide the 4 points for the Main Street program, just as a reminder, and obviously the blue one, promotion, and economic development, the red one, are key areas where there is some opportunity for collaboration and partnership with a local CVB. So what is a CVB? It's known as a Convention and Visitors Bureau. You may hear of them called a Destination Marketing Organization or a DMO. And the purpose, we don't have like a wonderful slide like you all have with those 4 points to identify the functions of a Convention and Visitors Bureau, but this is how I view it. It is specifically, their function is to market a destination and help manage that destination, work on the visitor experiences, provide more reasons for people to come into your communities. And by doing that marketing and developing those products, that there is economic growth. So that is it in a nutshell, but recognize that CVBs don't come in one size. And if you try to assume that all CVBs are the same, you're going to be disappointed because they aren't the same. And that function is because different communities have different assets. And what do I mean by assets? I mean, different tourism products, different reasons why people want to come into your community. Realize the Convention and Visitors Bureaus are bringing people from out of town into your community. They need attractions. They need communities such as yourselves and the ones you represent. And so visitors convention bureaus have different sets of assets. They also may prioritize different target markets. So they're, if you think about from an urban perspective, most of the urban convention and visitors bureaus do a lot of business in business travel, meeting travel, convention travel, much different than maybe a small community CVB that has access to the outdoors in small towns and the heritage of a community. So there are target markets that are determined usually by the CVB and its board, because of course we can't be everything to everyone, just like you. So they may prioritize certain markets. They also vary because they have different resources. And it's not just about money and staffing. It's also about, I really look at resources as partnerships in the community and how well they've nurtured and leveraged those partnerships, including partnerships with Main Street programs and many of their partners. So going back to this Main Street chart, you can better see, yes, okay, so we're both promoting, we're both working on economic development. How do we work better together? I am so excited to share this with you, and I don't know if you all have seen this before, but this is something that was done in Marietta. And what they did, the Main Street program, the Convention and Visitors Bureau, and their Port Authority, who acts as their economic development agency, put together this very simple, one page front and back identification of maybe some of their major tasks, who is a leader in that effort, and who plays supporting roles. And I think this is brilliant for their stakeholders, even for some of their organizations going forward. They involve their boards in developing this. But the one thing I want to call your attention to on the second page, under economic support services, coordination of place-based tours is checked by all three. So the one suggestion I would have to make this even stronger is understanding the place-based tours, as well as the others where there's multiple checks. They're not the same audience. So an economic development agency may do place-based tours, but their goal for those tours is quite different than the others. Same with education and training. So where there's multiple green dots, I would take this even further and identify the specific audiences, because they likely don't overlap too much. But I thought this was great, and I hope it's helpful to you all. So knowing that you have a CVB maybe, and knowing that we're talking about group tours, which we're going to go into more details, but the purpose of this webinar, we're focusing in on groups. So one of the first things I would do is really identify the priority level of groups at your county and or your community CVB. You may be in a community where you have a county convention and visitors bureau, but then you may have municipal bureaus as well. And by saying identify the priority level, it's understanding, do they market to groups? How do they market to groups? If they do, if they say, yes, we market to groups, then how can you support their efforts? And here are three ways. One of them can be, what support do they need to help market their groups? Do they need, really dynamic images and videos? Do they need help with identifying when events are being held and which ones are planned far enough in advance for this market? Do they need assistance in helping to create experiences in your communities or at your business, or even being able to host groups when they come in? And what about educating the businesses? So there are many ways that you could work in collaboration with an effort that's at the CVB on attracting the group tour market in groups. But you may have a situation where you don't have a visitors bureau in your community. And if you do, they may not necessarily provide or prioritize groups. So remember, they have to, use their resources. Not all of them prioritize groups as well as some of the others. So could you either assume responsibilities or collaborate? Because maybe they really, really want to tap into this market, but they just don't have enough bandwidth to do so. And so as a community that represents multiple businesses, you're one piece of the puzzle. Can you provide assistance to help launch it? The same task. How do you market? How do you create the experiences? And how do you educate the businesses? All right, so what are groups? Let's just start with the basics. So a group tour company organizes trips by packaging many of the components. They may package lodging, meals, they have a bus, or they hire a bus, and they provide all of these at one price. Sometimes meals aren't included, sometimes some of the meals are included, but the rationale behind all of this is that they're saying this is an adventure to your community, and there is one price, and it includes all of these components. The common thread is that someone other than the traveler does all the planning, makes the arrangements, and coordinates the group experience. So if you are, I get this a lot. They're like, but what's happened since the pandemic? What, are these groups running? Oh, yes, they are. Because one of the unique selling points of getting on a group tour is that there's less risk. We know this because we've done the research. And so a consumer will book with a group tour because they know someone has their back. They've taken care of the arrangements. They're going to know what to do. And post-pandemic, we have seen the increase in curated travel, or travel which is coordinated by someone else who has their back, grow. All right, so what are the different types of tours? And this is just a very simplified version. We'll start off with just looking at domestic leisure group tours. These are groups that they come into your area and they're doing it for fun, for a trip. And one of the things I find really interesting is there was a survey I read, just not a survey, but an article by a really reputable source nationwide. And they were saying, yes, there's these leisure group tours, and they are two kinds. There's seniors and there's adventure tours. And I was like, holy crap, like that is so not true. There are senior tours, and there are these adventure tours, which are more, outdoors, adventure type activities. But what this article did is they left off a huge segment of folks who want to experience communities, and they're not seniors, and they don't necessarily want to go rock climbing, but they want to experience our unique places in unique ways. The second type of tour, which many of you probably hosted in your communities, could be student tours. And there's 4 basic types of student tours. There are those tours that are education-based. And so many times museums will work with retired teachers or educators in the community and tie in that trip with the learning standards required by their curriculum. Others are performance-based. A choir or a band may come in and perform at your parade or in your, downtown gazebo. That's a real opportunity for even performing students from outside your immediate area to come in and have the opportunity. Recreational, they're just coming in to have a good time, and or sports-based, which is also growing. So the third type of tours you may see are special interest groups. We call them affinity tours. They may be a bank club or a religious organization. And usually the person organizing those tours is someone paid for by the bank, or they're a volunteer, and they're bringing in people, like-minded people, to come in and enjoy an experience. So I think it's really important for us to understand the basic buying chain of how groups work, because we have found that a lot of people don't necessarily understand the basic buying chain. And if we understand the business model of these tour planners, then we can better meet their needs. So this is basic. You have museums, attractions, hotels, retail shops, restaurants, communities, etc. You are the supplier. You are supplying experiences for the tour planner, who is known as the buyer. So this could be the professional tour company. It could, be someone, a professional tour company, maybe contacting you. Maybe they're in Iowa, and they're either responding to the marketing that has been going out by your CVB or by yourselves about come to our area, plan a tour for the area, or they're reaching out to you directly and saying, we're coming in, what is there to do? So they're going to negotiate and they're going to work with the supplier. And then that tour planner is going to sell, and if you could see me, I have air quotes, they're selling that experience, that package that they've created to the group visitor. And that's actually your guest. So the people coming in on the bus on any given tour, they're your guests. And one of the things we've heard from tour operators repeatedly is that many times we treat groups as groups. And they complain. They say, we're herded in and out like cattle. And we don't necessarily recognize, okay, these are individual travelers, individual personalities, motivations for being there, that happen to be traveling together. And so we need to make that distinction of not treating groups as groups, but as a group of individuals. So let's go even deeper into this a little bit. So what is the buyer's business model? Well, as we said, they're going to contact you or your businesses. They're going to create a package with maybe hotels and restaurants and attractions and things to do and places to go. And they're going to package all of those things into an enticing experience. And they're going to reach out to you for initial quotes. So they're going to be saying, we're thinking about doing this tour, or we see you have this itinerary. We'd like, to put this in our catalog. We'd like to promote this. They're going to go negotiate with you, and they're going to set the package selling price at this point. So that's because then they're going to take everything they've done and they're going to go to market and they're going to sell it. So that tour operator in Iowa, he's going to be taking ads out in his local paper, celebrating your community, because he's got to convince people that your community is something to see and he wants them to book with him. So they're going to market the package to clients. Sometimes they have a mailing list, and they're going to sell the actual package. Then the next point is confirming the package. So after they've sold it, then they're going to reach out back to you and closer to the date, confirm the arrangements. It is only at that point that you're going to know how many people. Are there multiple trips? Are there multiple buses? And that's where the nitty-gritty and the details come. But you can see what happens if you change your selling price, or you change things between that creating the package step and confirming. All of a sudden, it's hurt that tour operator because they make money from that markup. And then the tour actually arrives. So this is a wholesale business market, wholesale business model. And, they have to have the ability to mark up the product to cover their costs and profits, but so must you be able to cover your costs and profits. And the other thing is they want to offer packages, which are known as products. So they want to offer these experiences to your community, first of all, that are in demand or that can't be done in any other way than a tour. And how big is the market? It's pretty big. And again, just based on the pandemic, what we're seeing, even 4 weeks ago, I was getting reports back of the buses weren't completely filled. Last week, I was in a community, they were getting full buses. So they were getting, 40 people on a bus, and they were coming in and they're booking. So they are booking, they've been booking throughout the pandemic. But they are getting more and more of these folks out on the road. And it's about a $13 billion industry. Of course, we all know if we can snag them for an overnight, they'll spend more in our community because they're spending more time in our community. So it only makes sense they would spend more. But even a day coach, even someone coming in, a motor coach coming in for one day, has a substantial impact to your community. What are they looking for? Value for the money. This is a survey we did of about 1,200 tour operators around the country. They're looking for value for the money, not necessarily the cheapest. So if you provide an experience in your community, whatever that may look like, and it may not be the cheapest, but it is the best experience and you're the only place they're going to find it, that's value for the money. Exclusivity. It has to be something that a person can't get off the street. So if someone can walk into your business or your community and get the very same experience that you're offering to these professional tour companies, it's probably not good enough. And ease of booking. Are you making it easy for these tour planners to find you, to find somebody who can help them and to book the business? Arrival did a survey in September, I think last September, or just this past September, that looked at how travelers choose a tour and what matters the most. And so these are consumers who are choosing to go on a tour, and you can see the lowest price is the least important. What's on the itinerary and the schedule and whether or not others have enjoyed it are the most important. So when you look at all these things, it makes you start to realize that we as communities and as attractions have the ability to really transform this market, because what you offer is what the tour operators can sell. And so if we're only offering the same thing we've sold for 10 years and the same style that we've offered for 10 years, we're going to get the same tour operators. Where if we mix things up, do something really creative, that we have an opportunity to attract different markets. What ruins a tour? I won't go through all of these, just a couple things. Again, how important it is for communities and the businesses in your communities to understand how to service a group when they arrive into town. Look at the top three. The blue represent the total results. The orange bars were identified as the top reasons. Bad food, we all know, right? That can derail any type of experience, but look at the next two or three, four really. If the consumers have a bad experience at a hotel or a restaurant, if they have a negative experience at an attraction or activity, even one, that has an impact on whether or not you've met or exceeded their expectations. Poor customer service and poor step-ons in attraction guides. And step-ons are those hosts that you may have, step on the bus or walk with the group around your community, and if they're not lively, engaged, and understand the dynamics of a group, then that whole situation can go south. How are groups changing? This was prior to the pandemic, but we see this growing even now. They want more experiences and less show me tours. They just don't want to be shown things. They want to experience things. They want a little more free time. So if you're bringing in a group to your community, or you're hosting a group in community, it's really important to think about, how do I incorporate some free time? Sometimes we'll bring them into a retail shop, or we'll have the owner talk to them, and maybe they're not given a lot of time just to browse. That's what that means. So there's a trend towards smaller group sizes, which means we can design more intimate experiences, quality lodging, foods, interest for local foods and tastes, and wineries and breweries, and they want more choices. And I see this happen a lot when we do itineraries. We'll bring in a group and we'll have like choices, and you can shop here or shop here or shop there. Okay, we've given them 3 shopping choices, and chances are we shouldn't be doing that, because we're assuming everyone on the bus is a shopper. So it would be better if there was a heritage site, then a retail shop, and then another maybe experience. Maybe it's an outdoor experience or a park or something like that. 3 different types of options, and not just 3 places of the same option. All right, so now we have an idea of what groups are, how they operate, what is the Epic Group Experience Program, and we are super excited about this. So I have to give you a little background about it. First of all, we, as Ohio Travel Association, also manage Heartland Travel Showcase, which is a 14-state show that connects tour operators with suppliers. Again, suppliers, that's you, communities, restaurants, hotels, CVBs, attractions. So these buyers come in and they meet directly with you in appointments and in follow-up throughout the year. And that's where they learn of new tour ideas, and that's where they'll book those. We also, because we do Heartland Travel Showcase, we have access to over 1,500 tour operators around the country. So we started surveying them and looking for what is happening with their market. What do they hope suppliers knew about group travel? How could they improve those experiences when they come to town? We took all this information and we started doing a series of, I call them innovation labs. They were called Studio HTS. And we didn't walk in with the answers, we walked in with the questions. And we brought operators and we brought every sector of this industry together in small groups and just really had deep conversations about where are the problem areas? How could we take advantage of this market? What could we do differently? And we looked for solutions in best practices because it really never been done before. And so when we had these conversations and we built each of these labs built along the previous, all of a sudden we had massive amounts of best practices and information. We formed a group on the left. You will see it's a group from around the Midwest. It includes tour operators, attractions, CVBs, hotels, you name it. And those people were divided into 3 teams that worked with us on taking all those best practices and developing standards and developing this program. But we also had conversations with more than 275 others who do business in group travel, looking for ideas, looking for best practices, looking for solutions. And I'll have you know, like even last week, I did a workshop about the program and actually starting to get people designated. And I picked up 2 more best practices. So this is a fluid situation that the more people we engage with, wow, the more we're going to learn about how to make this work. So we had all these conversations, collected all this data, all these best practices, and the idea of a designation program then grew organically because the realization is, I don't know about y'all, but like I have bullet fatigue, and to do presentations and just give all the answers, it doesn't last. It doesn't have a lasting impact. But if we're able to leverage our relationship with these tour operators with these best practices and create a program whereby businesses can be designated and acknowledged for their expertise in understanding how to provide exceptional service to groups, we can then promote them to the tour operators as well. So the actual program is a twofer. Like the actual Epic Group Experiences program is a training program because you have a checklist of standards and best practices. And you'll see as we go further, you even have more resources available. There hasn't been a consolidated approach to understanding the group travel industry. And perhaps many of you on the call can relate that when I started this industry, I don't know what to do. I mean, I learned by trial and error on how to deal with groups, and maybe someone who was in the position before me who might have learned it from someone else, but that doesn't necessarily mean we were all doing the right thing. And we were talking as suppliers, but not necessarily with the operator also. And the industry itself and everything is evolving so quickly. Let's be part of that evolution, and let's transform group travel, which I believe we can do, by ensuring that people understand the possibilities. Training program, that's a piece of it. And frankly, that's why a lot of the businesses like it, particularly with the turnover. They like the fact that they're going to sign up to become an Epic Group experience, and they're going to have a training program that they can pass on to their employees and their volunteers. The second part of it is recognition. Look, those who excel at this, we want to shout their names like from the top of the mountain, because that is just going to advance this industry even more. So we want to give full recognition to those folks who've taken the commitment to understand. So the actual process when one decides, okay, I'm going to go for this EPIC designation, it is a self-guided program, and you'll receive 2 PDFs, an application, which is about a 63 page document, a PDF that contains the standards, the best practices, and the forms you'll need to complete. The other thing you'll get is an activity guide. And the activity guide in itself, it's not required for designation, but for us to really think creatively about creating epic group experiences at our businesses and our communities, we want to give you the tools to do so. So we have been testing different tools throughout the pandemic, and put these 14 of our favorite tools into an activity guide that are hands-on worksheets. So you'll have these to share with your staffs, to really kind of think about what you're going to be learning in the standards and in some of the training materials. But here's a way to take what you've learned and apply it directly to what you need. So what's required for designation? I'm going to quickly go through the 3 parts of designation. And we'll start with part 1, which are the standards and best practices. So there are 27 standards and 9 best practices for meeting the foundations of group tours. It doesn't matter what sector you're in. It doesn't matter if you're a hotel or a restaurant or an event. These are the basics. So everyone is required to complete these standards. And these are some of the topics that we talk about. The process of booking and confirming tours, working in tandem with your CVB, motor coach parking, guest safety, restrooms. These are just the primary topics that are covered, and that have standards built for each of those. Now, let's say you're a hotel. Well, there are 28 standards and 26 plus best practices for lodging. So it covers everything from managing luggage to, I tell you what, one of the biggest conversations was serving breakfast. So imagine the difficulty if you're a hotel and you have a complimentary breakfast and you have 40 people come down for breakfast. Well, how do you manage that process so the eggs are warm and so that everyone's not trying to get out the door at the same time? And so we were able to work with tour operators and hoteliers and come up with some standards and best practices, establishing cancellation clauses, booking your property. So a hotel would have to fulfill the general plus the lodging. Same thing happens with dining. How does a restaurant provide a group experience? And 19 standards, 8 best practices. And then we have one that says attractions and activities, 32 standards and 18 plus best practices. Now, you may say, but what about retail? Retail is an activity. If we've learned anything from this pandemic, is that we all can't be put neatly in a box. And I refuse to put everything in a box. So, it's the understanding that a stop in your community, at a retail shop, at a historic museum, Those are attractions. Those are those activities and experiences. And so we provide, everything from pricing, best practices, to comp policies for that as well. So if you're the type of business who does all three, you choose the one most relevant to you plus the general. So, we're not requiring that someone who may do all three complete all of the 3 sector sessions, but you know what, if someone's going for this designation, they want the group business, it behooves them to read the entire application because they're going to learn something from it. So these standards, just a couple keys to remember, they're not random. They are created on in-depth conversations with those booking tours, but they're coupled with the fact that they're balanced with the need of businesses to generate a return on investment. I think for too long we've listened to, okay, this is what the tour operator wants. They're always going to negotiate a lower price because, again, going back to that business model, their markup is where they earn profit. But in experience, you should not be providing an experience and losing money. So if you're serving cookies or you're doing something with that group, those costs have to be built into that tour. So it behooves you, and it's beneficial for you to book the business. The standards are built with flexibility in mind. So in many cases, we're not saying you have to have motor coach parking, in place. We're giving you options. And if you don't have motor coach parking in place, then through the standards, you've got 3 options that make you think about where that motor coach will park, what will happen with the driver, how are you going to drop people off and pick people up. So, meeting the standards does not mean a huge investment or any investment. Same thing with restrooms. We're not requiring it. However, what we are requiring it is that you think about the process, and we're giving you advice for if you don't have a restroom on site, what you need to do. Many of the standards that are a little more difficult, such as cancellation policies or attrition, the standard itself is you've looked at the best practices and develop a standard. Because again, every business is different. Your business models are different. Your community's businesses are different. So we're giving people the opportunity to learn what's important, what could make or break a sale, but we're still giving you the opportunity to make decisions on your own based on what works for you. Because if this doesn't work, this market doesn't work for suppliers and buyers, it just won't survive. So, and the standards also are more than just a checklist. Every single one of them includes rationale, why the standards are put in place, why this might be important. So the standards themselves that are located in the application are really like a handbook to group tours, which we've never had before. All right, the second part of designation is putting the epic into epic experiences. And we'll talk about this in a second, but it's about generating ideas, understanding what makes a memorable moment for anyone coming into your community or your business, and how are you going to incorporate elements of that into your business. So while the first section took care of the foundations, this one, hey, we just don't want to take care of foundations. We want the Midwest, we want Ohio to provide truly epic experiences and be sought after and be recognized. The third part of designation is the education portion. And we have 11 10-minute or less videos that are sent, will be sent. So person says, okay, I want to go for designation. You get the 2 booklets in a PDF format, and they're linked to 11 10-minute videos. So you have the training, and they're yours to keep. They're not yours to share. This is all protected by trademarks. But they're yours for you and your organization to really dive deep. And these are some of the topics that are covered. So once you have all 3 of these parts achieved, and honestly, if you do a really good job with group tours, this is not going to be difficult. Again, this is about recognizing those people who do it well. And so after all of those parts, all 3 parts are completed, you sign a statement of commitment, and we'll start reviewing. Once you're designated, you'll get a digital badge, a press release template, a link to an epic promise so that those coming to your website will understand how important group travel is and the effort you put into this. And we're going to promote you to those tour operators from across the country because you've done the work. All right, so very quickly, and this is just a bonus, I'm going to talk about some of the research we did, and I'm not going to go into a whole lot due to time, but there are 6 common traits of memorable moments. And how do we know this? Well, we know it because we studied behavioral science from outside the tourism industry, but we've also aligned that with the research we did the last 4 years through these innovation labs in looking at, if you think about your favorite trip, wherever, it could be a community next door or 200 miles away, there were certain elements that were repeated over and over again. And so they're the 6 common traits of memorable moments that we explore deeper in the designation process. But I thought I will go over some of these today just as a bonus. So they spell out hearts, H-E-A-R-T-S, just to make it easy. First one, heartfelt hospitality. And these are things to think about as you work with a group. How do you go above and beyond so every group guest, driver, and escort feels special? You'll notice that I put heartfelt in front of hospitality because this means it's authentic. It means you understand the power of the group, what they're bringing to the business and the community, and you are truly passionate about welcoming them. Exclusivity, we talked about this before. Remember when I said group tour buyers were looking for this? So what are you offering special just for groups that are traveling with a group? It doesn't mean you have to offer something that no one else is offering. It means how you're offering it. So, it doesn't mean that there's a seafood restaurant and you have a seafood restaurant and it's not exclusive. How you offer that group experience is what makes it exclusive. Authenticity, and this is a buzzword. We've heard it over and over, especially with this group. But I'm going to challenge you to think deeper about authenticity. I've come to the realization that it's not just about authentic stories and places. It's about providing opportunities for our guests to authentically connect with our places. And there's a difference there. So if we look at all the research, people remember trips and experiences where they've had a moment of self-discovery. And so if we orchestrate every moment and we tell them what to think and what to discover, it doesn't give the guests themselves that opportunity to make those discoveries on their own. So authentic, still about local, still about unique, still about, stories and places. But I want you to start thinking too about those moments of self-discovery being authentic. Relationships, groups are traveling with other people. So, do we provide opportunities and recognize that when groups come in, there's a huge social component. And yeah, sometimes we put hosts or guides and we have them talk the whole time. And they don't have a chance to talk to one another or to talk with those they meet. So, when the designation, we look for opportunities for people to, and we give examples and some ideas on how we can consider the importance of relationships and foster those relationships. This is my favorite one, transformative. If those of you are familiar with the experience economy, transformative economy is one step above. And it didn't matter what the answer was when we started exploring what people remembered about the places that were special to them. The most common thing that was happening is that they said they felt something. They felt something. What they felt might have been different, but they felt something. And that experience, whatever favorite trip they took, stuck in their mind, and they could actually evoke those feelings as they thought about it. I mean, those feelings, those emotions came back. So how do we create opportunities for guests to think differently about the world or themselves? And how do we want them to feel? I've one tour operator who starts every itinerary with a feeling. I want my guests to feel whatever. And then he builds the itinerary. And this is something that we've kind of got into this routine of like experiences, right? But how do we take it above experiences? And how do we connect opportunities and be really thoughtful about it to be actually creating emotion and creating magic? All right, the last one, surprising. Create an element of surprise. But here's what we do. We tell them about it. So here it happens all the time. I see it. Oh, we're going to serve a surprise mimosa at the end. What happens when you tell people that there's a surprise coming? Well, it turns it into an expectation, and we evaluate whatever it is we're offering in a much different lens because we have this expectation of it. So if you say, oh, we have this surprise mimosa, I guarantee you the mimosa is going to be too big or not big enough or not sweet enough or not cold enough because it's an expectation. But if we don't tell them and literally have a surprise, it's going to be the best mimosa they ever had. I have a story about staying overnight at a hotel in, I believe it was Lansing, and about 8:30, 9 o'clock, knock, 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 someone's at my door, and I peek out from the peephole, and it's a grandma, and she has a tray of warm milk and cookies that she's just giving away. Would you like warm milk and cookies? I don't even like warm milk, but I drank it, and it was the best tasting, warm milk. Why? Because it was that powerful, moment of a surprise. And are we intentional in thinking about how we include elements of a surprise? Standards, the training, everything we talk about in this program helps you create experiences that involve all 6 of these elements. Why is it important? Well, from a community standpoint, it's important because it gives you a competitive advantage. From a business standpoint, if we've got museums or actual attractions on the call, it's also a competitive advantage for you because they're going to know at a glance, what they're doing. And tour operators are going to book with businesses they trust because they're trusting you with their consumers. So it gives you a competitive advantage. For organizations such as Main Street, CVBs, your partners are going to appreciate you. There's added value because you're connecting them to this opportunity. For communities and Main Streets, there's less risk because when you book tours in the future and you booking them with businesses who've gone through this program, there's less risk that something negative is going to happen. That that these folks really are passionate about the group market, they know what they're doing, and they've gone through the program. And, should say third party endorsement. The beautiful thing about this is, many times when someone is representing an entire community, you have to list every business. We're here simply putting a logo next to a name shows these buyers at once that they've gone through the program and understand how to take care of their customers. 3 ways to get your local businesses designated. You could host a workshop. We have started to do these. And we have 50, I think we have 50 businesses now in the process of getting designated. We're starting in Ohio, but it will be expanded to the 14-state region of the Heartland. Work with your CVB. If you're a Main Street, work with your CVB and help them, host a workshop or promote the program to your businesses. If you're an attraction or an event or a restaurant or any of those that actually bring groups in and you're part of that group tour, not coordinating it, you're part of that experience, you yourselves can also sign up for the designation. And So you can do that and do it, because it is self-guided. You don't need the workshops. The workshops check off the education component, and they're just kind of being used to pilot, and we're tweaking things as we go. All right, that is it, and we have good 10 minutes. I am sure I've forgotten things, but I would love to respond to any questions or ideas, any thoughts from those of you on the call.
Okay, thank you so much, Melinda. Please type your questions into the chat box there, the question box, while we're waiting for people to type those in. Our next webinar will be Wednesday, December 1st on fire safety tax credits on building improvements, and that'll be 1 p.m. on December 1st. Well, I'm going to start by saying my favorite note I took, Melinda, was curated travel. I think all of us, maybe not all of us, maybe just Joyce, thinks of bus travel as being something of lesser quality, but curated travel has elevated it. And I can immediately see that I would want my travel curated. Yes.
You know, that's such a good point, Joyce. And one thing I've learned over decades in this industry is that our choice of words matter. And, you know, we even talked at some of these labs, you know, it's about shared travel, really. And in the bus provides transportation, but in today's and tomorrow's world of the shared travel, curated travel experience, it's the experience that matters. And that's what they're buying into. And so we even go through in the designation program ways you can turn even the bus into an experience that is aligned with whatever experience they're going to have. So it truly is, I think, a way of looking at it. You know, we all have perceptions, and we have perceptions about what group tours are, what motor coach tours are, and those are based on the past, or they're based on, you know, maybe a handful of experiences, but the possibilities for different options are there. And I can tell you, after I've studied the market, looked at the need, looked at how we can curate these experiences for groups in such a way that we're going to attract people of all generations who are doing it because of what they're going to find when they get to you, not because it's a bus tour. And so we have to kind of let go of these outdated perceptions and look at how to transform, because I think we've put a lot of responsibility on the tour operators and, you know, the bus companies to make that change, but they can only change so much because we're the ones providing the experiences. So we have to work in collaboration. And if we provide exceptional experiences, that's only going to help them draw a different market.
As we wait for people, come on, type in your questions. I know you have ideas, so please type those in. Also, Melinda, why don't you just share, you know, I don't know, 5 top things that come to mind that you thought were crazy creative that you've seen come out of this?
Oh boy, like narrowing it down to 5. I had so many aha moments that I actually have them written down somewhere, but I'm not sure where they are. But okay, some of the 5 is the one I just told you about us having more control and responsibility over creating groups, the group market. That is not a matter of taking a call from a tour company and booking it, and then waiting for them to call to confirm or cancel. Like we have the ability to help them sell that tour. So not only do we have responsibility and power to control what experiences we're offering, but we also have the ability to help them sell, and we have the expertise too. So that would be the second thing I've learned, is that, and we've kind of provided suggestions and examples in the designation program, is give them the tools the operators need to promote you to sell it. But a lot of times we'll send a brochure or a visitor's guide or information that has our 800 number on it, and they can't use that because that's sending the person who's interested back to you, not to them and the tour. So we've created some templates and some ways of looking at, here's some ways to be brand consistent, sell your experiences, get the leads back to the tour operator. I think I've discovered that a lot of the things that we do as businesses, whether it's cancellation policies or even how we have group tour rates, they're copied from one another, and we don't often review them from the lens of a tour operator and their business model. And so that was another thing. And in the receptiveness of all these people, when we have these conversations, they're like, you're right. Like, I don't even know what ours says. We copied it from so-and-so. So I think the receptiveness of people to understand that, first of all, understand their business model, and then how do you create policies that are going to help them? Because the good thing about groups is you build these relationships, they're going to come to you again and again and again. So those are a couple of the big old things, but I mean, there's so many.
Okay, here Pat has a question I think that everyone can relate to. We're just starting to realize our community might become a tourist destination. Should we be working on attracting groups first or attracting individuals first?
Well, that is such a good question. And I don't know, Pat, what community you're calling from, but here's my email. Reach out to me and let's have a more in-depth conversation about it. I think it really depends. It depends on the support mechanisms around you, whether you have a CVB. And that's why I'd like to have more personal discussion with you, because you may be in a community that's got a really great group tour product and passion at their bureau, where it's easy to fold this in. I also look too, and I know this isn't a direct answer, but I work a lot with different interest groups, and Joyce, you get this because we've done this together for years, like aviation sites or presidential sites and these heritage sites and stories, and we think about linking these things and the stories into trails, right? And then we think only of the individual leisure traveler, and we think, oh, okay, well, we're going to put this up on a website, we're going to talk about it. How easy it would be to convert those experiences into group options as well. But we've never gone there. We've always focused on the individual traveler. So I guess the long answer to that is it depends on where you're located, and what resources you have right now for the group market. But it's also, I don't think, an either or decision. I think as you develop tourism in your community, don't pigeonhole yourself into one. I would say learn what it takes to service a group first. That's also going to depend. Are you able to meet the foundations of groups? Are you going to be able to meet the expectations of them? And if you are, then it's a consideration. So Pat, email me. Let's talk more specific based on where you're located.
I'm sure she will. Yeah, my first intuitively, I think, man, you have to sell one tour operator rather than 40 individual people. And
Right.
once you sell that one tour operator, they can come back every month, and you're getting hundreds of people for the relationship that you could never get over and over and over with individuals.
Right. But I also think it's very important to understand there's about a 3-year, 2 to 3 year gap before you start in this market and you start to see results. Very important. Remember, because of their buying model, their business model. Remember how I said they're going to contact you, then they have to go out and sell it?
Yeah.
They may be booking with you 9 months to 2 years in advance. So first of all, you got to build the relationship with the operators, because I know of no other market. Like, it is very much about relationships, because they're giving you their friends, their clients, their colleagues, and they're trusting you. Then there's that whole delay between booking and getting it. So I think understanding and making sure your boards and stakeholders understand the buying cycle and the expectation of when you work on this, you should start seeing results, is really important. Because what happens is they give up too early and then they lose traction. We see that a lot.
Melinda, one other thing, I know we're right at it's at 2 o'clock already, but for those of you who can stay a few moments, do you want to give a commercial and explain what the Heartland Showcase is, so people know whether they ought to be coming to that, whether they should be a vendor there, what happens?
Sure, that's kind of you. So Heartland Travel Showcase is, again, a group tour buying show where we bring in tour operators and they meet with all of you, maybe attractions, maybe CVB or a Main Street program or a hotel or lodging. And we have appointments where you actually know who you're meeting with, and you are able to have an opportunity to sell your group experiences to these buyers that they can then put in an itinerary for future business. The wonderful thing about it is we will be in Cleveland in February 4th through 6th. It's a tight, no nonsense business show. It is all about conducting business. We do about $10 million on the floor right there at the show with people who already have established relationships. It's very easy for them to, yep, Jonette, I'm coming, here's when I'm coming. So we'll be in Cleveland 4th through 6th, but the beautiful thing is we'll be in Cincinnati region March 10th through 12th of 2023. What this does is gives Ohioans back-to-back opportunities to meet with these folks. And that's a really great opportunity to get your message out in front of these. Look, if you meet with an operator in Cleveland and then you have no communications with them till Cincy, not going to do you a whole lot of good, right? But if you meet with an operator in Cleveland, do follow up, maybe have a few phone calls or emails throughout the year, then meet with them again in Cincy. Already you've met, what, 4 or 5 of your impressions that we know it takes at minimum 7 impressions to make a sale. So we're really excited to have it back to back in Ohio.
Great. Pat wants to add the comment for all of the rest of you to know that this is the best way to start a relationship through the tourist community, is using the Heartland Travel Showcase. So an endorsement for that too. If buddy up with other people, go with attractions, go with your CVB, Main Streets, go with your CVB, create a buddy, package your community up to go.
Absolutely, absolutely. And I can, Janet Johnson, who's our deputy director, manages the show. But if you email me, I will make sure you get connected to her if you have specific questions and want to sign up for Heartland.
Okay, thank you so much. And like I said, we went a few minutes over, but Melinda, I really appreciate you presenting all this information to our audience. And we'll see many of you next month at our next webinar.
No, I appreciate the opportunity. Thanks for attending, and thank you, Joyce, for the opportunity.
Bye-bye.